Hello class, welcome to lab number 2, installing Ubuntu 22.04 in VirtualBox. Due to its length and complexity, the lab will be divided into 4 videos. This will allow you to complete one video today, one video tomorrow, and so on, just so that you can be more efficient with your time during the class. Now, let's start with the first part of this lab, which is just reading. Just reading. I want you to go over this presentation over here. We did it through class, but I want you to review it one more time. Then I want you to go over this presentation over here using VirtualBox, read it. Then once you're done reading that, I want you to go over this presentation over here where I install Ubuntu 20.04, an earlier version of Ubuntu, but it is very similar to Ubuntu 22.04. Just go over this presentation as well. You know, it's very useful. This is going to give you an overall idea of what we're doing. So don't come to this video empty, just read those presentations. And once you're done reading these presentations, then come back to the lab. Now, let's go over the requirements. So, please take your time, do this slow. It's long, but this is the most important lab in the class because without a computer that runs Ubuntu, you won't be able to do anything in the class at all. And that includes the final exam and the final project. If you don't have a computer that meets the criteria for this class, aka not a potato, then you're gonna struggle a lot. I suggest you buy a decent computer, you know, or come to the college. I prepare a computer in the college that is good to go. All you have to do is contact me ahead of time and we can meet in the school and set up an account for you to use. I can show you the ropes and you're good to go. But definitely you need a computer to do this class. And if it's a potato, trust me, I have had students in the past where they have attempted to complete this course with a computer that is not optimal for the class, and their experience is so poor that it's just riddled with frustration. At the end of the semester, you end up learning very little, and it's just a mess. So have a decent computer. Also, if you chose this career, IT, computer science, you need a decent machine. You need a decent computer because you're gonna do a lot of stuff. Virtualization is just the tip of the iceberg, and having a very bad computer or a very old computer doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut it. I mean, Linux users in general, we can do the work on anything that has the CPU, even a dual core computer. But that's because we find workarounds for a lot of things. But when you are getting started in this career, you need an optimal environment because otherwise you're gonna find yourself frustrated all the time, and that's just not optimal. You want a smooth learning experience. Now, only start this lab after you have watched the presentations. After you have read it, then start this lab. Trust me on that one. Now, question 1, enabling virtualization. That's the first step. In order for you to do this work, you need to have virtualization enabled in your computer. So, here is a tutorial that teaches you how to enable virtualization in your computer if it's not already enabled. You know, it's very good. Actually, that's for Mac users. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, let me explain this for Mac users first. So, if you have a very recent Mac computer, M1 chip, the new ARM CPU that they are using, you're not going to be able to use that computer for my class. Some students have tried. There are alternative softwares that you can use for virtualization, alternative version of Ubuntu that you can use, but trust me, it's a headache. A lot of the things don't work right. There are frustrations that you're going to encounter. Just things don't translate one-to-one between VirtualBox and UTM, which is the program that can allow you to create virtual machines of Ubuntu. I don't have an Apple computer, so I don't know if Apple has fixed this problem or if VirtualBox have released a version that can work. I don't know. If you want to investigate that on your free time and see if you can get it to work, be my guest. But I don't have an Apple computer so that I can make videos to fix each and every one of the problems that you're going to encounter. And they are very expensive and they just don't pan out. So my suggestion is get a Windows computer. You can buy a pre-owned, refurbished, with decent Windows computer with a 4-core CPU on Amazon for like $200. They're not as expensive as you think they are because, wink wink, they are not Apple computers. And they're gonna do wonders. They're gonna work perfectly for not just this class but pretty much every other class. The truth of the matter is that the IT world runs on Windows. If you're studying IT, being an Apple only user is only going to hurt you at the end of the day. So that's my advice to you. I know the college sells a very good Lenovo laptop for like $200. That's perfect for not only this class, for pretty much everything you're gonna do in your college career. I don't know if they are still available, so don't quote me on that. Go to the bookstore and ask them if they still have it available. But that's just my advice. Now, if you have an earlier Mac computer that has an Intel CPU and has at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, you're good to go. Everything that I'm going to be doing is going to work just the same as it works on a Windows computer. But only if you have that version of an Apple computer. And if you don't know, contact me. We get in a call. We'll discuss it on a one-on-one. Or Slack me. We'll chat about it. We'll see what we can do for you. But that's just fair warning. If you have an Apple computer, it's not going to be very smooth. Now, for Windows user, if you have a modern Windows machine with more than 8 gigabytes of RAM or with 8 gigs of RAM, you're good to go. Chances are your CPU supports virtualization. What you need to do is find out if virtualization is already enabled. These are the requirements for my class. A quad-core CPU, 8 gigs of RAM or more, and at least 60 gigabytes of available space. You are going to be running 2 virtual machines, a server and a client, towards the end of the semester. So if your computer doesn't meet this requirement, it's going to be very, very, very slow, to a point that you probably won't be able to do the final exam or the final project, which is going to be terrible because that's a lot of the points for the class. So if you have a potato, think about switching, because that computer is not going to cut it. Again, quad-core CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, 60 gigabytes of storage or more. If you don't know your specs, we can get on a call, you and me, we can figure it out together, and I can give you the verdict whether your computer can cut it in the class or not. Also, if you don't know the stuff that I'm talking about right now, you will need to pay extra attention in the class, because there is some terminology that I don't explain that I expect you to already know it. Maybe take CIS 107 or 116 and then take my class. That would be a good advice, because we don't have the time for me to explain every single bit of detail that you don't understand. So if you don't understand, it's basic things like RAM, CPU, storage, the difference between hard drive and RAM, you're gonna have to do some heavy lifting on your own. There is just so much that I can do to help. Now, if your computer already meets those requirements, then we can proceed with the lab. Let's figure out if your computer runs virtualization, if it can do virtualization. And for that, I put a little picture over here. So you can go to the preferences in your computer, and that's going to tell you the specs of your machine. For example, if I click over here and I go on settings and I go to about, I think it is, what is it? System, right? About. So this computer has 4 gigabytes of RAM. Again, this is a virtual machine. I use it just for making demonstrations. And it has a 6-core CPU at 3.6. So this computer is good to go. Essentially, I would need to increase the RAM in order to make it fit for this. But this is a virtual machine, like I explained earlier. It's only used for demonstration purposes. I don't run Windows locally on my computer. Now, if you want to know if your computer supports virtualization, well, you can open Task Manager. So go here, Task Manager. Then you click on Performance, as you see in the picture over here, CPU, and over here it's going to tell you if virtualization is enabled or not. It's going to say virtualization enabled or virtualization disabled. Right now, in my case, because this is a virtual machine, it says nothing. Now I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to enable virtualization in this virtual machine, which will add something else to this section over here. So bear with me one moment. Okay, so I enable virtualization on my Windows virtual machine. And we're going to see how the Task Manager looks now that virtualization has been enabled in this computer. Okay, so let's click on Task Manager here. Let's just search it. Task Manager, Performance, and notice that, didn't change. It still says virtualization. It still doesn't say whether virtualization is enabled or not. But again, this computer is a virtual machine, so I don't expect things to work exactly the same way as in yours. In yours, it should say, once you enable virtualization, it should say virtualization enable here. Now, if virtualization is disabled, I have included a very easy and straightforward guide on how to enable virtualization in your computer in this lab. Let's just wait until Edge opens over here. Okay, here you go. Click on this guy. And if you follow along this video or you read through this guide, it will tell you how you can enable virtualization in your computer. It also tells you how to know if virtualization is enabled in your machine as well. But if it says virtualization enabled, you're good to go. Now, if you're having problems with this question, if you can't get past this video, you gotta get in contact with me right away. We can make a tutoring session live where we can do it together. You know, we can fill in some gaps, but don't wait until the last day that this assignment is due, because I might not be available. I might be busy, and then you end up giving me the assignment late. Procrastination is not a proper excuse for not doing the work on time. So I suggest you do this one as soon as possible. At least the first video, so that you know that you're good to go. With that said, I'm gonna see you, let me see. I'll see you on the next video on how to create a virtual machine for Ubuntu 22.04.